Okay, so today we're going to be looking at worksheet 8.3 for Algebra 2. We're going over how to solve systems of equations. And when you're doing this, when you're solving systems of equations, remember that you're trying to find solutions that will give you an x value and a y value, and you express that as an ordered pair. Generally express it that way. Okay. So this is, like I said, from worksheet 8.3, and we're going to be looking at problems 11 and 12. So as we're doing this, I wanted to go over both methods as a review. Remember, you can choose which method you would like to use to find those values of x and y. You can either do it with the elimination method. So for the elimination method, you could change signs and or numbers. To create an equation with one variable. That's the whole point. We want an equation with one variable. So for elimination, that involves changing the signs or the numbers. And then substitution. Ooh, I spelled it right. Yay. I have a tendency to not get that spelled right off the bat. For this one, you're going to replace one variable with what would be a good way, the equal expression of another, of the other, because there's only two, right? With the equal expression. Ooh, whiteout time. You could just say equal. It may just be a number. A number by itself is an expression. That's okay. But this is going into perpetuity on YouTube, so we want to make sure it's right. So we want to replace one variable with the equal expression. Oops, bad. Trying to write with the pen and white out. Should say it's a permanent marker. Just had hand surgery, so I can't write with a regular pen. Sometimes when you smush it like that, it dries faster. There we go. So replace one variable with the equal expression of the other variable. Trying to get that permanent marker ink to flow again. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you both ways. Remember, we've got a choice, and you can choose any way you want to do it. Elimination, you're going to change the signs of the numbers. For substitution, replace one variable with the equal expression of the other variable. And both of those have that goal of creating an equation with one variable. All right, so let's go ahead and get that going. We'll start off with number 11. And what I'll do is I'll work it out both ways. Please remember, you choose, okay? You choose. You do not have to do both ways when you actually work on this, okay? But I will show you both. So you have a knowledge and experience with it. Okay. All right. So you choose as we're going through this, and you're going to see that sometimes one way is going to be easier than the other way, quite often. All right. So let's go ahead and do number 11. And I'm going to split this off like this because I said I was going to do it both ways. There, go. And number 11 is, oops, giving it away. Is x plus 9y equals -1. That's our first equation in the system. And the second one is 2x plus 4y equals 5. So if I'm using elimination, I need opposites either for the x's or the y's. And all of these are positive, so I will have to change the sign of either the top or the bottom. And remember, we're going to do that all the way through the equation. So even if I just change the sign, though, the numbers are not opposites, so we're also going to have to multiply or divide. Rule of thumb, you generally want to multiply because when you start dividing, you usually end up with fractions and decimals, and ew. All right, so let's look at these. If I wanted to make these guys opposite, I could multiply the top x by 2, but then I'd still need a negative. So it would probably be easier to just put that all together into one number, -2. Just put a -2 right there, right? So I could multiply across by -2, and that would make an opposite right there. For the y's, this one would be messy because it doesn't matter if I'm trying to make the 9 into a 4 or the 4 into a 9, I'm going to have to use fractions, and I still need to change the sign. So that's going to be more complicated. And you know, you could be kind of a show off and say, I can do it, and you can, but you're going to probably set yourself up to make mistakes that you wouldn't make if you were just doing a whole number. That's a really important thing to think about. The more complicated this gets, the more chances you are going to have of making a mistake. So try to go as least complicated as possible. So I'm going to multiply all the way through for this one by -2. So I'm going to put this like this. So this is like a big parenthesis, but it's covering the whole equation. And to multiply by -2, it's kind of like we're doing the distributive property. We're going to distribute it to every term inside. So we have x over here. And remember, the sign goes with the term. So this is positive 9y, sign, number, variable. Every term has a sign, a number, and a variable. Even if there's no variable, that would be that variable to the 0 power. We won't get into that now, but technically you could write it. We just don't because it's complicated and that leads to mistakes. So we've got a term here, and yes, this guy over here is a term all by himself on that side. So I'm going to distribute to these 3 terms. So it's going to go here, here, and here. Okay? So -2 times x. Well, sign, number, variable. Well, what is the number though? Well, remember, this is 1x sitting by itself. That's literally 1x. So the sign here, this is going to be a positive because that's what it is by default. Positive times a negative, and I'm going to go ahead and write it down here because I chose to compare the 2 methods. So Negative times a positive gives me a negative. Numbers, 2 times 1 is 2. Variable, just the x. There we go. Now let's do the second term. Signs. Positive times a negative is a negative. Numbers, 9 times 2 is 18. And variable, just the y. And then finally, this last term on the right side, negative 1 times negative 2. So negative times a negative is positive. It's okay to write that down. Just in your answer, don't. But it's okay to write here. And then 1 times 2 is, for the numbers, 2. And now we are ready to do some combining. So we're going to combine and eliminate the x's. That's where we got that name from, elimination. We're going to set it up to eliminate. So we're going to eliminate the x's when we put all this together. So when I combine this equations, now that's going to cancel. And I've got 18 negatives and 14 positives. So 4 of the 18 are going to cancel with these guys. That's going to give me negative 14y. And then right over here, 5 plus 2 is 7. And now finish off your solving, because now we got one variable. All we got to do is get rid of that negative 14. We got our answer. Woohoo! That's why we did that. So y is going to be sign, positive divided by a negative is a negative. Numbers, 7 divided by 14, can't do that, but you can reduce the top and the bottom by 7. So 7 divided by 7 is 1, and 14 divided by 7 is 2. So we found y to be negative 1/2. Now, it would be a good idea, since we're working on a worksheet that has answers to check, right now, I would go check the worksheet and see if any of the answers include negative 1/2, and yes, they do. There's at least one answer there that does. But if I had checked it and it wasn't there, that'd tell me, okay, teacher, you messed up. Go fix it. But we're good. All right, so now I'm going to use this to find the x. And remember how we had numbers for the coefficients up here? 9 going with y, 4 going with y. You want to think about which one of those is going to be the easiest to work with this. And if I put it in with the 9 and use that first equation, I'm going to have decimals and fractions. Ooh, try to avoid that. So I'm going to go with the second one, because I know 4/2 is the same as 2. That's a better choice. So I'm going to take this and plug it into the second one. So we're going to have 2x plus 4y equals 5. And I'm going to plug that in right there because it has the same value as y. That's what it says right there. Yes, it does. So 2x plus 4 times the negative 1/2 equals 5. And let's go ahead and solve that. I need to simplify this first. So 4/2 we know is going to be 2, but don't forget your signs and numbers. Sorry about that noise there. So 4 is positive, this is negative, so that's going to give us a negative 2. And then everything else, just bring it on down as it is. And keep it going. So we're going to add 2 to both sides to cancel, because now all we did here is simplify. We didn't have to do anything over here with that. But now we're starting to cancel to get this x by itself. So now I need an equal action on both sides to keep these values equal to each other. So that's going to cancel there. And then now I need an equal action to get rid of that 2, and the opposite of times 2 is divide by 2. So I'm going to divide by 2 equally on both sides, and x equals 7/2. So if we look at the answer choices, you're going to see that there is an answer choice with x is 7/2, y equals 1/2, and that would be the word dressed. So remember, you want to take those guys and put them together. X goes first. If sometimes I get ahead of myself and I kind of get that out of order because I got this answer first, and sometimes I will write that down first. So be careful. So y was -1/2. X was 7/2. There's our answer, and that goes with the word dressed. Okay, so that's how you do number 11 using elimination. So now let's try it with substitution. So x plus 9y equals -1. 2x plus 4y equals 5. And we already know what the answer is going to be. So we should be able to kind of check our work as we go. Now right away, I notice there is a variable. It's not quite by itself yet because there's a little bit with it, but this x doesn't have a coefficient. So that tells me if I'm going to use substitution, I want it to get to where it says this x is by itself. So in order to do that, I need to get rid of the 9y. So what's the opposite of positive 9y? That would be negative 9y. So if you want to, come on over here. I'm going to do it this way. You could do it other ways, how you want to write it down. I'm just going to rewrite it over here because I'm wanting to keep stuff organized in that space. And then, like I said, I'm going to cancel it with the opposite right there, equal action on both sides. So that's going to cancel here. That gives me x equals, and then over here, see, I've got this I need to put together. But can I put together a constant term with a variable term? This guy doesn't have y's. So what you're going to do is just copy it down exactly as it is. Just go top to bottom, read it. X equals -1 minus 9y. And remember, those signs are negatives and subtraction at the same time. One is a value, one is an operation. So -1 minus 9y. And the cool thing is, once I figure out what y is, I can just come back over here and plug it in and get x. But now, let's take it and plug it in. Kind of making a circle here, right? We solve for x, we're going to substitute it, and then solve for y. So here we go. That's going to get plugged in right here. And it's going to get a bit complicated, but not too bad. So we're going to substitute for x, -1 minus 9y. And then everything else is going to come down just like it was before. And voila, we can solve for y. So let's go ahead and solve for y. I've got parentheses here, and I cannot combine these because I couldn't combine them over here, right? So I can't do that over here either. So I'm going to distribute that 2 to get rid of the parentheses because I can do the action. I can multiply both of them by 2. So 2 times -1 and 2 times -9y. That's going to give me -2 here, and then over here, sign number variable. The 2 is positive by default, so positive times a negative is a negative. Numbers, 2 times 9 is 18, variable y. And now I'm going to bring down everything else. It's okay if you do this because it helps you avoid making mistakes by not having to rewrite everything. That's a common thing. If I wrote this stuff down here, I might accidentally start putting that with this and it gets crazy. People make that mistake all the time. So I recommend use these arrows to show, yes, it's still here. I just didn't write it down because I want to focus on these steps. I don't want to mess this up. All right, so now let's combine our like terms. Right here and right here, we've got to keep simplifying. So I've got, look at this. Doesn't this look familiar? Doesn't this look just like this? Look at that. Just like that. 18 negatives, 4 positives. Huh. So when we put that together, we're going to get 14 negatives. So -14y equals 5. And bring down that -2. There you go. And now, what are we going to do here? Remember, we had to add 2. And look at that. That's exactly what we're going to do here. Look at the similarities. So that's going to cancel. And we get -14y equals 7. And look, they're almost exactly the same. This is crazy, isn't it? Pretty awesome. Oop, bad teacher. It was so awesome until the teacher wrote down the wrong number. Okay, there we go. So now we're going to divide. I'm going to pat that. Gets on your finger. It's okay. If you don't mind. And divide it by that -14. And y equals -1/2. Just like what we got over here, right? Right there. And now I'm going to take that and come back up here, figure out what x is. All right, so x equals -1 minus 9 times, and now I've got that -1/2. Now, here's a place where it might get complicated for you, because over here, it was not too bad, but now if I chose to do it this way, oh, could I use this one? Yes, you could. But my rule of thumb was to always use this one because it's already solved. So if you're looking at this and you're going, man, that is yuck. I don't want to deal with that mess right there. Go ahead and copy down the other one, okay? 2x plus 4y equals 5. Let's go ahead and use that one, okay? And it's a little small. Let me zoom it in. So I'm going to plug in that y right there, and it'll be just like the one we had over here. So 2x plus 4 times -1/2 equals 5. And I like how my arrow keeps my work separate. I don't have to worry about this getting messed up. That's pretty nice. I'm going to combine these two. Positive times a negative is a negative. And I've got 4 halves, which is 2. So 2x minus 2 equals 5. We're going to add that 2 to cancel on both sides, because now we're doing the opposite. So we've got to change the whole equation. And that's going to give us 2x equals 7. Divide by 2, and there you go. X equals 7/2. All right. So that was number 11. And once again, don't forget, if this was your final answer, you need to put that into x, y coordinate form. So 7/2, -1/2. Make that all good. And that matches what we got over here. So that's number 11 done both ways. And you can choose when you start working on your own which way you want to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this here because that's a long video. And I'm going to load this, and then I'm going to go ahead and do number 12. Thank you.